Hello, this is S.K. Williams, and this is my third and final Paschal address for 2024. Given late because I was ill. And of course, I'm celebrating the Orthodox Paschal season, so it's actually 2 months after the Western Easter was this year, and closer aligned to the Jewish Passover, which it is also thematically linked to, since during the Passover, God sent the angel of death to slay the firstborn of Egypt, who were not simply the children, they included adults, but those were spared who put the blood of the lamb upon their doorposts. And Christ acted as the same sort of sacrifice. Those who put their trust in his blood are spared death. Not physical death, but a spiritual death. The message of Christ is one of renewal, one of rebirth, one of recreation. That is why we are baptized if you're a Christian. It allows you to join in his death, his burial, and his resurrection. An end of the old and the beginning of the new. A creation of something new out of something old. A creation of something pure and perfect out of something imperfect. Something impure. And, while this is my second video showcasing this animation, it is a continuation of the previous one, so I can honestly say it's the first video that I did that has been animated for a long time. It was animated specifically for this. The animation is crude, both because I have become rusty and because I didn't focus too much on the animation, both because I was in a hurry and because I wanted to make certain the software was working properly. But nevertheless, I do intend on doing better animation. I intend on working on my avatar and making him look a bit better, and I intend on working on his shapes a bit better, and on a little better animation. But it's the first time I've animated something in a few years, new animation. It is for the Paschal season, so I do regret not wearing proper clothing for it, in animated form. A bit of a loud shirt, a long-sleeve t-shirt, and what looks like blue pants, probably intended to be denim blue jeans. Christ, of course, deserves better. He would deserve the proper suit and tie, and to be honest, I prefer wearing a suit and tie both in real life and in animated form. But I don't have the suit and tie loaded yet, so this may not be the best, but it is the best I had, at least for now. And that is enough. Christ does not demand the best if it is out of our reach. He only demands the best we can do. That is why what one offers may be an insult, while another, if he offers exactly the same thing or even less, may be offering something that is seen as more and more worthy. Because we are not judged by what we give or what we do, but also on the circumstances and the limitations that we face. This is also why it is a silly question to ask, what about people who have never heard of Christianity? Will they be saved? With the two answers usually given that the ignorance of Christianity will save you, therefore Christians are monsters, because they insist on spreading their religion even though it ensures people will be damned because they will hear it and reject it, or else everyone is damned who does not hear of the gospel. Therefore God is capricious for revealing his will only to a small group of people. And neither of those views are what Christians hold, especially historically. Rather, it is understood that God is known around the world. It is not really thought of that the God of my religion, the Christian religion, the Christian God of the Christian religion is the one true God, and all other religions are just false and worship false gods. Rather, it is understood that just because something is a different religion does not necessarily make it a different God. And while imperfect and admixed with error, other people's understanding of God may still, nevertheless, be an understanding of the same God they know of. Paul the Apostle spoke of this on Mars Hill when he pointed to the altar to the unknown God. science, religion, philosophy. They point to the same world we live in, and if God exists, he would be known to others, and reducing religion, as bigoted sociopathic atheists do, to believing in the stories of a holy book, thus Christianity is about believing in the stories of the Bible, and you would expect Native Americans to be Christians and have the Bible if Christianity were true, because God would have just dropped a Bible from the sky to them, and maybe Christian space aliens. That isn't what it's about. Religion isn't about believing in stories in a holy book. Christianity isn't about believing in stories in the Bible. And for Christianity to be true, the things it speaks of in the Bible would have to be true. Not just the stories being historical fact, but rather the principles, the ideas, the morals, the aspirations, the way it says the world works. That would be what is true. And the more I study the Bible, the more I read it, the more I study the world's religions, the more I discover that C.S. Lewis, a much reviled name in the same bigoted sociopath atheist community, was right. There are differences between different religions, of course, but there are also tremendous similarities, and far more uniformity in thought than you would think if you listened to the anti-arguments. The differences are important. But most of the differences that one sees are not really differences in substance. They are differences in form. They are the same truths and the same principles being translated via a different cultural lens and a different history. Or else they're simply different historical events which people experienced and went through in their culture. And I find that far less relevant. The truth of Christianity is not gauged simply by the truth of biblical stories being historically accurate. Neither is Christianity only about believing in those stories. I'm not, of course, saying that the stories in the Bible are not true, and I'm not saying they're not important, but I am saying that the reason those stories are important to us now is more than just that they are historically real. It's because they mean something to us. When we hear of David fighting Goliath, we do not simply think of a young shepherd boy taking a sling and killing a larger Philistine man. We think of some unlikely, weaker opponent defeating a stronger one, and it has now become a byword for that sort of struggle. The same can be said for other events in the Bible. The flood of Noah has become a way we can conceptualize large-scale disaster and destruction, but also renewal through destruction. The Exodus from Egypt is the flight from bondage to freedom, but at the same time how people bicker about it. The captivity in Babylon, a long stretch of time in which one is removed from one's homeland, has become a way for us to conceptualize losses and long removals, perhaps not physical even. And the story of Christ, who died for us, a man who knew no sin, who became sin for us, and who rose again, giving us new life, is a symbol of renewal, forgiveness, and hope, as much as he is a historical person, and he was a historical person. But this archetypical psychological needs that we have as humans are met by the world's religious traditions, and ultimately speak to the same truths we see in the world that we live in, and can either be discovered or revealed to other cultures, whether or not they know of David and Goliath, whether or not they know of the Babylonian captivity, whether or not they know of the Exodus or Noah. That part's not the important part here. They can learn about the ideals and tribulations of human life, and write of them from their cultural perspective, from their history, from their frame of reference. And it is ultimately the great truths of Christianity that convince me of its truth. And I don't need to say other religions are just fairy tales and false and completely wrong, nor do I have to see them as worshipping a different god if they have a single creator god. and I don't have to see they're judged by any but Jesus when they die, without necessarily calling him Jesus. Let us suppose the Chinese Jade Emperor is just their name for Jesus. I'm not saying he definitely is, it's for the sake of argument. Do you think it matters if you call him Jesus or Jade Emperor? Of course not, it's still the same person doing the judging. And therein lies what we need these for. Religious beliefs are nothing but philosophy that we live by. In our modern world, we like dividing philosophy and religion as distinct, and they really aren't. A religion is nothing more than a philosophy one lives by. And philosophy is needed so that we can understand our world, what it's like, and what it means to live in that world, and to understand how to live a good and proper life. And that is what Jesus the Christ gave us. For he gives us a governing principle as much as he gives us anything else. So that Christ is king, both in the sense that Jesus Christ, who is the second person in the Holy Trinity, and who is God who became incarnate, is our king and rules over the kingdom of Christ on earth, which is the church. But the idea of Christ also governs our thoughts and all other ideas, and it is rightly so. The power of a king willing to go through the whole cycle of life for us, and willing to die for us, and willing to raise for us, and willing to forgive us, and the teachings that he gave us should indeed govern and guide us. I don't have much else to say, so happy Paschal. He is risen. And thank you, God bless, and goodbye.